important because the city of Buffalo just passed a resolution to support a statewide ban on hydrofracking. And this is a way to say, Governor Cuomo, you passed a fracking ban back in 2011. Fracking is not safe for us, and it's also not safe for our neighbors. Today they also sent a public letter to Governor Cuomo also saying that hydrofracking is way too dangerous and way too risky for New York's future. That hydrofracking might actually happen this year, which is why this resolution is so important. Reports have said that fracking could happen within the next few months right here in New York State. Now, we would really like Governor Cuomo to take a stand against hydrofracking. We'd really like state-level legislators to take a stand against fracking. Right now, the ban bill is actually stuck in a local committee. It's stuck in the Environmental Conservation Committee. It's been there since last year, and our local senator has not brought it up for a vote.
Hydrofracking uses enormous amounts of fresh water to extract the gas buried deeply in the Earth's surface. And when that water comes up, when they put pressure on that well and water comes up, that contains hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of many toxic chemicals. And the problem that the gas companies have now is what to do with that toxic wastewater, because it is toxic to all life on Earth, and so it has to be permanently segregated from the biosphere. And so they're sending it to Ohio to bury it deeply in the deep injection wells in Ohio. They want to send it to Niagara Falls. Up until last night they could do that. But the city of Niagara Falls has banned the importation of wastewater from
A while ago, Rita came to the office and she met with me and started talking to me about fracking. And I had seen some things on the internet, and I had seen, I think it was right after the people in Jamestown area or Binghamton, I forget where, when they were setting their water on fire. And it was just perfect timing on her behalf. And quite honestly, when I first heard of this, I thought, well, the council can use this as bully pulpit. And then we found out more information about the potential that there was going to be attempts to have water brought into our sewer departments and things like that. And the more I read about it, the more terrible I thought it sounded. So, first off, it's really Rita that brought this to the council. She's given me and the council credit, but it's Rita.
I'm an organizer for Food and Water Watch and Western New York Drilling Defense. Thank you all for being here today. Today at the 2 p.m. council session, amidst reports that New York State might greenlight hydraulic fracturing this year, the Buffalo Common Council today passed a resolution to support S4220 and A7218. Bills that would prohibit fracking and wastewater treatment in New York. Buffalo said to Governor Cuomo, ban fracking now. This is a monumental and historic day not only for Buffalo, but for all of New York State and for communities everywhere affected by gas drilling. Buffalo realizes that New York's urban centers would be sacrificing its rural towns in order to tap into shale gas. The Common Council also urged Governor Cuomo not to move forward with plans to open New York to fracking in a public letter, explaining that regulation cannot protect against mistakes, some of which have recently come to light through EPA investigations in Pennsylvania and Wyoming. The resolution states that fracking's negative impacts could affect Buffalo and other Great Lakes communities. It is our duty as a Great Lakes community to protect our lakes, and fracking waste directly threatens that. The Great Lakes are the largest surface freshwater system on Earth, and the Great Lakes are sensitive to the effects of drilling, including pollution from drilling operations, discharges of fracking waste from treatment plants, and runoff from solid waste disposal sites. Fracking cannot be done safely, and there isn't any regulation that will spare Western New York from the burden of drilling in our aquifers. Currently, our senators are not supporting a ban in protection of this region, though the ban bill is the only legislation that would protect our watersheds from drilling, while also ensuring that the Buffalo-Niagara region doesn't become New York's toxic waste dump. In February 2000, in speaking to organizers in New York City, I know that all of New York is grateful for the Buffalo Common Council's leadership in calling for a statewide ban on fracking, and it is the most complete line of defense for New Yorkers. We urge other local officials to follow Buffalo's example in standing up for safety of our state's air, water, and food. In February 2011, Buffalo became the first city in New York State to protect residents from drilling and waste disposal by passing municipal legislation opposing fracking and fracking waste. Buffalo has led the statewide fight against fracking, with over 60 municipalities having passed some sort of local ordinance restricting fracking or waste. Buffalo is truly a leader in the movement to protect New York against fracking, and I commend the council for all of their work. In fact, Buffalo is so influential that just yesterday, on Monday, March 5th, following Buffalo's leads and actually beating them to the punch, the Niagara Falls Common Council passed a similar resolution supporting a statewide ban on fracking as a message to Governor Cuomo. They also passed legislation to prohibit fracking and fracking waste from entering the city, using Buffalo's model. This legislation makes Niagara Falls the latest municipality to follow suit and pass local legislation protecting their residents and downstream communities. Today, Buffalo, the second largest city in New York, stood up again, this time to protect its neighbors. We took action to ban fracking in Buffalo, and now we want the state to follow suit. It must be New York's top priority to protect the water supply and the health of residents. Keep in mind that if fracking were permitted in New York, we would be inviting the same industry in that in 2 years, from 2008 to 2010, had over 1,600 violations in Pennsylvania. Hydro-fracking is not an exact science. When gas companies fracture the shale, they do not have complete control over where fractures will develop, so fracturing fluids and natural gas can move in unexpected directions, sometimes into underground water supplies. There have been cases of homes, wells, and pipelines exploding, and people have found methane levels in their water so high that they could light it with a match. Fracking has been cited as a threat to surface and groundwater throughout the region and has been blamed for fatal explosions and the contamination of drinking water, local streams, our air, and our soil. Collateral damage includes lost property value and drying up of mortgage loans for prospective home buyers. What we see every day is more damning evidence from across the country that fracking is not a good idea and leads to water contamination. For instance, in January, just 2 months ago, the EPA detected arsenic, a known human carcinogen, barium, and other contaminants in well water of homes near natural gas drilling operations in Dimock, Pennsylvania. These chemicals and carcinogens were present at levels that present a public health concern and are not naturally found in the environment. Cabot Oil and Gas began drilling for gas in the area in 2008, and after the residents' water went bad, it took years for them to fight to get clean water, which later was actually taken away from them. In January, the DEC closed their public comment period on their study on fracking. Overwhelming opposition to fracking in New York has been expressed throughout the DEC's public comment period on the study, with more than 60,000 people submitting written comments. Tens of thousands of people and dozens of major advocacy organizations from across New York have told the DEC and Governor Cuomo that regulations will not make fracking safe. Western New York could actually be hit the hardest if fracking were to go forward, instead of having a permanent ban. DEC's study currently recommends that horizontal drilling be banned entirely in the New York City and Syracuse watersheds, but no Western New York watersheds have been protected. Western New York watersheds would be susceptible to contamination from drilling operations, and local residents may be forced to rely on outdated water filtration systems as a line of defense. There is growing recognition that the state's proposed regulations will fail to protect New York residents and the state's drinking water supply from toxic chemicals used in fracking. Today, Buffalo has joined in on asking the governor to reject the flawed environmental impact study and instead pass a bill banning fracking in New York. There is a strong mandate for the governor to put a stop to the process of opening up New York to fracking. The question is now whether Governor Cuomo will listen to the oil and gas industry or the people of New York. This should be a wake-up call not only to the governor, but also to our local state-level officials. This city is the home district of the Senate Environmental Conservation Committee chair, where the ban bill, S-4220, is currently stalled. There's been overwhelming support for the city's resolution and letter in the community. We were there cheering on the local ban, and now we're here packing City Hall again to show our support. It's disappointing, though, to see that on the state level, legislators have not taken our side, especially when legislation is stuck in a committee that's chaired locally. It's very apparent what people want from our state legislators. Support a ban and do everything in your power to move forward this bill. So I thank the Buffalo Common Council for sending the message to Governor Cuomo that fracking is not safe for our area and it's not safe for New Yorkers. Thank you for once again solidifying the city's stance on fracking through today's resolution and letter to Governor Cuomo. We led the way, and now we take the next step saying it's unsafe for us and it's unsafe for our neighbors.